So there's two focuses of this project. The first focus is to understand how to use tax software. Now, there's a tax software we're using, which is in Canvas. I have a video that walks you through how to set up an account. It's free. Because you're using dummy information, you're not using any real social security numbers or any real information. Yes, yes, you're doing this online on the internet, but if anyone hacks into your account, they're getting fake information anyways. So it's not like you're using like your real social security number, your real address, anything like that. You're using made up information. So again, the first main focus is understanding how to navigate tax return software. Because in Tax 1, Tax 2, you learn all these concepts, but what you see is that when you do tax return software, a lot of it, it kind of asks you questions, goes through, and it kind of does things for you. Not everything, but most things. So the first thing is that I want you to understand how to use tax return software. Now, some of you are going to be like, well, I'm never going to use this type of tax return software in practice. The main thing is that regardless what kind of tax return software you use, it's all very similar in many ways. Not identical, but very similar. It has a similar system where it has what's called a interview process, or you can just go and you can skip the interview process, but most people I recommend to do the interview process. Okay, so you get a kind of a sense of like how this is done in practice. The second thing is, as I mentioned, the software does a lot of the stuff for you, but doesn't do everything. It shows you how even when you're using tax software, you still have to remember a lot of tax knowledge, or at least go and like try to figure it out looking at your notes or the textbook. So we do have a textbook in this class, and it's the same textbook from Tax 1. We don't really use it as much in this course, but one thing I do tell students to use it for is for this project, because this tax return project involves both Tax 1 and Tax 2 stuff. So there will be stuff from Tax 1. Now the good news is that it's very straightforward how I present the information to you, and also, again, you're able to go into your notes, look up things and whatnot. All right, so we have a fact pattern here, and anywhere where you see a highlighted piece of information, that's something that's unique to a student. So as I mentioned, you can work together on this project, but you have to submit your own. And you have to go through the software. You can't just go and change around a PDF document. You've got to use the software. So if everybody in this section of the class wants to get together, after this class and work on it together, I'm 100% fine with that. Because again, you're at least working on it yourselves in your own computer, and you're seeing again how the software navigates. That's the main purpose of the assignment. And also to show you that not everything is in the software. Those are the purposes of the assignment. The assignment is not to be 100% accurate. So anytime you see a highlighted piece of information, that's something that's unique to the student. It's either going to ask you to use the last name of you as a student, because that's what the taxpayers' last names are, or it's going to ask you to make up something like a street address. I tried to color code the things that are identical, okay? But there's so many different colors I could use. Now, one thing to note is that when you're watching this, note the tax year, okay? So it'll tell you the tax year here. It says 2018. Okay, up here in the corner is the year for the class I have, but when you're watching this video, and again, when you're watching this in the future, you're going to have different years. You want to note the year that you're at issue. So for example, looking here, this is going to be a 2018 return, but I'm talking about this in the year 2019. Okay, just so you know. Now, when you go through this information, it gives you a lot of stuff. This is going to deal mostly with filing status. Okay, and you do have to determine these things. You can use your textbook. You can use IRS publications. I recommend IRS publications like Publication 17. That's the main one. There's also IRS publication 4012, which is what they use for VITA. Okay? And that publication is a very useful one because it has lots of flow charts and what to help you determine if you have filing statuses or you can take certain credits or whatnot. But again, the software does some of these things for you, but there's going to be elements where you're like, okay, do I have a dependent? Well, what does dependent mean? The software won't tell you that. So you use your textbook or the IRS publications to go through and determine some of these things. Because again, that's part of the project. Now, A lot of that there deals with the filing status, dependencies, dependents. Okay. Also, we've got things like income. All right. Then we've got some more information, again, about filing status, potential dependents. Also, maybe some things about credits, dealing with education. That's all provided there. More income issues. More income issues. Next paragraph, we've got more college information. More college information. Finally, we've got something related to an aunt that you have to worry about. That might be a special issue you need to worry about an aunt. Okay, continues with the aunt. Then we've got some portfolio income issues to address. So things like interest, dividends, those kinds of things. Gambling income and activity. Okay. We've got a special event, some inheritance. And with all these things, you need to go through the software and also through your textbook, or again, IRS Publication 17 or 4012, and determine, okay, I learned about this in Tax 1 or Tax 2 at some point, and I learned, okay, well, gifts or inheritances are excluded from gross income. So do I need to report something on a tax return saying it's excluded, or maybe I don't have to at all? Okay, that's for the software and for the publications. Okay? Also, we've got some alimony. And yes, I know that there's a crazy alimony situation here. Okay, there's a crazy alimony situation. I know I always get questions every year about alimony. It's like a crazy thing, like, oh, they were married at one time and they got divorced and they got remarried again. Yes, I intended that for what's to happen. Okay, so alimony. Also some, that's alimony, sorry. We've got some expenses related to one of the taxpayers' activities. We've got some unemployment, income, and expenses here to consider. Once you get to part 2, so I have it broken into part 1, part 2, and part 3. Part 1, the main focus is supposed to be on income, filing status, those kinds of things. So think about when you took Tax 1, you learned about filing statuses and the general tax law first, then you go into gross income. That's the case here as well. Now, it's not everything is in, not all income is in part 1, and all deductions are in part 2, and all property transactions are in part 3. No, that's not the case. But I try to keep it as much as I could that way to kind of give you a gauge on like the areas of activities. So this is going to be a business activity by one of the taxpayers, a business activity related to that, and they also give you some more. This tends to be one of the most difficult areas, so you got to pay special attention on this. There's lots of little key rules that you learned in your previous tax course dealing with, like uniforms. Can you deduct uniforms? Or business gifts, things like that. Those are all subject, okay? This is all business activity. Business activity gives you information about that. Continue with the business activity. We've got a potential bad debt issue here, okay? We've got a potential hobby, or it could be a profit activity on the side. Well, look at this. You've even got some rental activity. So rental activity involved, okay? Now I'm helping you, but I'm kind of spotting the issues already for you, but you got to go through. I'm not going to give you everything. And again, you're welcome to ask questions. If you come across a business activity, you're like, hey, I see this issue. Do I need to worry about this? Make sure that you focus on that, okay? And ask questions. We've got some IRA issues. We've got some other deductions, more deductions. These are where you're going to find most of your itemized deductions, but there might be some that are not itemized or some that aren't allowed at all. but most of them are found there for the itemized. And that's something you're going to determine is, does this taxpayer do a standard deduction or do they do itemized deduction? Okay, so continuing along with the deductions, what's deductible? One thing to note is that the tax law has changed recently, so you got to keep that in mind. We've got a casualty event. More deductions. And all that information. Okay, part 3. Part 3 focuses on property transactions. So in this class especially, we focus a lot on property transactions. Capital gain, capital loss, calculation. This is all property transaction. Now there might be stuff in part 1 that also involves property transactions, at least reporting, capital gain distribution or whatnot. You might find that in part 1 as well. Now here's the good thing. Again, I grade this extremely leniently. What I do is I kind of put groups of students together. You don't have to have 100% perfect to get 100. And I don't do a thing oh yeah, if you miss, 1, you get -1. No. What I do is I kind of give everybody a standard amount of things you can get wrong before you, start losing points. I kind of group them in categories. 100, 95, 90, 85, 80, and so on. The main issues that students usually have problems with are the capital gain and capital loss, the business income. The qualified business income usually students get, but that one also is a little tricky too, so pay attention to that. And note, I kind of give you a hint. Focus on that hint. And the software, because the software kind of does it a little bit differently, so make sure you focus on that hint. And I give you ranges. I tell you, hey, the numbers that you should get for adjusted gross income, for business income should be within these ranges. And I give you ranges within $5,000. Here are the forms that you need to turn in at the end. Just these ones. Finally, so on this project, on this assignment, you find the facts I just showed you. You find the page I just showed you with what forms you need to turn in the end. And then you also have this guidance and helpful tips. There's some videos that walk you through the software, how to create an account, that are very helpful. I highly recommend them. Again, part of this project is for you to go out, and you've now taken Tax 1, Tax 2, you've come to the end of the semester. And I want you to go out and use tax return software and address what you've learned. With these tax return softwares, they give you, helpful tips and stuff. These videos will help guide you, but not everything will be provided, not everything. Also, these videos are from older years, so there might have been changes with respect to, again, the tax law change, so keep that in mind. And then I give you lots of tips, and I'll give you lots of information that helps questions that students have asked in the past that I felt like were good questions. I've put on these tips, so you should read these, okay? It tells you, of course, don't file your return, don't e-file it, because it's fake. It tells you what you need to print out, specifically, how to get. So basically what you're going to do is you're going to be printing out a PDF, but you're also going to need to, there's a file I believe you create at the end. So I know that you completed it in it's screenshots, I think. I think that's what it is. Yeah, you take screenshots to show me you've done it. And that's really everything. Of course, if you have any questions, you can come to me office hours, discussion boards, anything. With that, we're done, and that's a tax return assignment.